Arthur's calloused fingers hovered over the tablet screen, a digital manifest glowing under the cool LED strip. Every can of peaches, every medical kit, every spare part accounted for. The hum of the air filtration system filled the sanctum, a constant low thrum against the reinforced concrete walls. Here, deep beneath the overgrown surface, control was absolute. Across the main chamber, Bea traced a finger along a faded diagram in a book. "And the roots draw nutrients from the soil, Leo." Her voice, a soft murmur, tried to conjure a garden where only the sterile air circulated. Leo, pale from the perpetual artificial light, nodded, his gaze distant, perhaps imagining the wild patch above ground. A faint thud vibrated through the floor. Then another, rhythmic, not the settling of earth, not the wind. Too deliberate. Arthur's hand moved, swift and precise, to the console. Gray eyes, sharp as flint, fixed on the grainy external feed. The overgrown homestead flickered into view. A lone figure crumpled near the perimeter, a dark stain blossoming on a crudely bandaged arm. Gaunt, desperate. Leo appeared at Arthur's elbow, a ghost in the dim light. His breath hitched. "Dad, someone's hurt." The boy's voice, raw with instinctive compassion, ripped through Arthur's carefully constructed isolation. His prepper philosophy, honed over decades, screamed, "Ignore it. Let nature take its course. Survival demands it." But Leo's wide eyes, innocent and pleading, held a different truth. He locked the main hatch, a series of heavy clicks echoing through the bunker. Then a calculated dash, not to help, to assess. The surface air hit him, damp and cool, smelling of decaying leaves and wild earth. The farmhouse, a skeletal outline against the bruised sky, watched over the untended garden. The figure was gone, a faint drag mark in the soft earth. Arthur's gaze swept the ground. A small, tattered doll lay face down in the dirt, its single button eye staring blankly. Beside it, scratched with a desperate finger, a crude symbol, a water drop, a cross, a plea, a demand. He saw the feverish flush on the ground where the figure had collapsed, the faint, sweet smell of sickness. Further off, a stack of stones. 3, then 2, then 1, pointing towards Haven's End. Not just chaos, organized desperation. A target. His target. Arthur stood at the perimeter, the doll clutched in his hand, its synthetic hair rough against his palm. The vast, desolate landscape stretched out. A distant sound, faint as a whisper, carried on the wind. A cough? A mournful cry? The world outside, suddenly closer, more desperate than he had ever allowed himself to believe. He looked from the doll to the reinforced bunker door. The silence within, once a comfort, now pressed in, suffocating. This wasn't just a threat. This was the beginning of something unavoidable. Arthur Finch moved through the bunker, his spine a stiff rod. Days blurred into a single, endless vigil. He checked the air filters again, the hum of the system a constant sterile lullaby. Every creak of the outer wall, every distant whisper of wind, sent him to the periscope. Their best defense was invisibility. He drilled Bea on water rations, slicing the day's allowance by another quarter. Any interaction, he argued, only invited more demands. Bea's eyes, once warm, now held a perpetual ache. Leo, pale from the filtered light, watched them, a small ghost in the corner of the main chamber. His parents' strained voices were the only music. One evening, the familiar thud of Bea's footsteps above him shifted, not towards the kitchen, towards the outer hatch. Arthur moved, silent as a shadow. He found her, a small bundle of canned peaches and a water bottle clutched in her hands, fumbling with the deadbolt. "What are you doing?" His voice was a low growl. Bea flinched, dropping the peaches. They rolled across the concrete floor. "They're out there, Arthur, hurting, dying." Her voice was a ragged whisper. "We are safe in here," he said. "That is all that matters." "Is it?" She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "Is this safety worth losing everything else? Worth being this thing?" He grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the hatch. "Don't be a fool. You would endanger us all." Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "We are already lost." Leo, huddled on his cot, pulled his knees to his chest, burying his face. The next morning, the silence of the wilderness shattered. A rhythmic thwack, thwack echoed through the bunker's thick walls. Arthur peered through the periscope. Beyond the tree line, figures moved. Callum, Rourke. They were setting up a camp, fires already smoking. Then the axes began to sing. Trees fell, one after another, opening clear lines of sight to the homestead. His natural camouflage dismantled. That night, Arthur slipped out. The air was cold, sharp with pine and damp earth. He moved low, silent, a phantom among the remaining shadows. He needed intel. He needed to know their numbers, their intentions. He crept towards their makeshift camp, the thud of his own heart louder than his footsteps. A jingle, faint. Then another, closer. A small bird, tethered to a tripwire, fluttered wildly, its tiny bells rattling. He froze. A twig snapped under his boot. Shouts. The beam of a flashlight swept the darkness. He dove, scrambling back towards the bunker, thorns tearing at his clothes, his breath ragged. He slammed the hatch shut, fumbling with the locks, his hands shaking so violently he could barely turn the bolts. He leaned against the cold steel, sweat chilling his skin, the sounds of pursuit fading outside. His meticulously planned defenses. Useless. The probing began the next day. A systematic testing of the perimeter. Footsteps, whispers, the scrape of tools against the earth. He watched through the periscope, his breath held tight. Then, Callum Rourke himself appeared. He walked directly to the main bunker entrance, his movements deliberate. He stopped beside a stout oak, pulled a knife from his belt. The blade glinted. He began to carve. Arthur watched the words appear, letter by slow, deliberate letter. "We know you're there. We know what you have. Share or lose it all." He looked up from the message. Callum stood perfectly still, watching the bunker. He didn't move, didn't gesture. He just watched. A cold dread settled in Arthur's gut. They were known, understood. The silence broke, the rhythmic thuds of an axe against wood, closer than before. Arthur's eye, pressed to the periscope's cool rubber, scanned the overgrown homestead. The wilderness beyond, a dense, untamed green, stretched to a horizon of bruised clouds. He tracked Callum's group, their movements ragged, their forms gaunt against the muted light. A flicker of movement, smaller than the rest, caught his attention. He adjusted the magnification, the image sharpening with a faint mechanical whine. A child. Small, too still, too pale. The child lay cradled in Callum's arms, a wisp of a thing, barely more than bone and tattered cloth. A jolt, sharp and unexpected, twisted Arthur's gut. The face, sunken and feverish, held a haunting echo. A younger Leo, perhaps? If Leo had been born into a different world, a harsher one without filtered air and nutrient paste. Callum's hands, surprisingly gentle, pressed a damp cloth to the child's forehead. A second figure, thin and hunched, offered a cracked canteen. The child did not stir. Despair etched their faces, a raw, visible thing. Not just raiders, Arthur realized, his analytical mind struggling against the sudden intrusion of empathy. Not just injured, illness, virulent and unforgiving, had taken hold. Their supplies, he deduced, were critically low. Callum was a leader, desperate, trying to save his people. The periscope view, usually a cold, objective lens, blurred. Not from moisture, but from something inside him, a tremor. His rigid worldview, so carefully constructed, cracked. He pulled back from the eyepiece, a new strategy forming. Not lethal, never lethal if he could help it. He moved with a practiced economy, his calloused hands flying over the controls. The sonic emitters hummed to life, tripwires activated, their unseen presence now a network of deterrents. The forest outside, a canvas for his deception, would soon sing a different tune. Diversions, carefully placed, would funnel them away, making the homestead seem impenetrable, not worth the fight. He watched, through the periscope, as the group hesitated, then turned, retreating deeper into the woods. A grim satisfaction tightened Arthur's jaw. They were retreating. The forest swallowed them, just as he intended. But the low hum of the air filtration system, a constant companion, faltered. A metallic groan, deep and resonant, echoed through the bunker's inner conduits. Arthur's eyes snapped to the internal monitor. A red light pulsed next to the diagram of the emergency ventilation shaft. The same shaft he had dismissed months ago during a meticulous check, muttering, "No one would ever find that, let alone fit through it." A faint scraping, metal on metal, came from within the walls. Then a single muffled thud, closer this time, vibrated through the floor beneath his feet. Another thud, heavier, more deliberate. He looked at Bia, then Leo, their faces mirroring his dawning horror. The bunker, his sanctuary, had become a steel trap. The hunters were already inside. The lead scout, a gaunt man with eyes like burnt-out coals, burst through the inner sanctum's final barrier. Arthur stood ready, his hand a shadow over the control panel. He had envisioned this moment, rehearsed it. Lethal gas, a disorienting sonic burst, a dozen ways to end the threat. His focus had always been the kill options. Then he saw the scout's desperate, haunted gaze, and beyond him, a glimpse of Callum, equally gaunt, the sick child a small, fragile bundle in his arms. A cold wave of understanding washed over Arthur. His meticulous preparation for everything meant preparing to destroy, not to build. The child, Callum's desperate face, Bea's weary, hopeful eyes. True survival wasn't about hoarding, not about annihilating. It was about coexistence. Absolute control had brought him to the brink of absolute loss. His hand slammed down, not on the lethal gas, but on a different setting. A shriek of a siren tore through the filtered air, followed by a violent, disorienting burst of compressed air. The scout staggered back, temporarily blinded. Arthur lunged, activating a previously sealed, hidden compartment. It swung open, revealing not weapons, but a small cache of medical supplies and a large, filtered water tank. "Stop!" Arthur's voice, hoarse but firm, cut through the fading siren. "We can talk. You need medicine and water. We have it, but we do this on my terms." Callum, disoriented, swayed, his scavenged rifle still clutched. He hesitated, his eyes darting from Arthur to the opened compartment. Bia stepped forward, her movements efficient. She knelt beside the sick child, her hands gently assessing the small, frail body. Leo, still pale, approached, a worn, plastic toy clutched in his hand. He extended it to the child, a silent offering. Slowly, hesitantly, Callum lowered his rifle. The immediate crisis receded. Arthur, wary but resolute, outlined the terms. Temporary shelter for the sick child and a few others in a decontaminated section of the bunker, under his direct supervision. The bunker's steel doors, once a symbol of impenetrable isolation, now stood occasionally ajar, allowing filtered air and the murmur of cautious interaction to permeate. Later, under a sky he rarely saw, Arthur sat outside the bunker's main entrance. His clothes were worn, stained with dirt. His hands, calloused and scarred from the recent conflict, no longer pristine, held a simple meal of canned beans and foraged grains. He shared it with Bia, Leo, and a few members of Callum's group, including the now recovering child. He passed Callum a multi-tool, its metal cool against his palm, a silent acknowledgement of their interdependence. He had sacrificed the illusion of absolute control. In its place, he found a new, more profound meaning of security in human connection and the fragile, shared possibility of a future. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows. Arthur looked at Callum. This is just the beginning." Callum's voice was low, a statement of fact, not a threat. "There are others out there, more desperate, more organized." Arthur nodded, his gaze moving from the recovering child to the vast, darkening expanse. The bunker's doors remained ajar, not fully open, but no longer sealed. He had found a new kind of security, one that demanded constant vigilance, collaboration, and a willingness to face the unknown together.